Hey there, happy gardeners. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if it's your first time here. I'm Fionuala and I live, work, and garden in Zone 9B. And today we're going to talk about drought-tolerant gardening. Now, the reason I picked this subject for today is because it's been warm for the last few days and it is hard to keep up on the watering for all your thirstier plants. So I figured, let's talk about how you can have a lush and lovely bloom-filled garden, even with minimal water, even in Zone 9B, when we really are supposed to be doing more drought-tolerant gardening. So let's start with, what does it mean to be gardening in Zone 9B? Now, I'm Northern California, that's my Zone 9B, so I'm going to tailor this specifically to what my particular region is, which is kind of pretty much a Mediterranean garden. Now, I'm outside of Petaluma, so we also get influenced by fog. If you're a little bit further west, you get even more fog. So I'm living in pretty much the most ideal climate ever, but other Zone 9Bs, totally, here we are. We're in a Mediterranean climate. So what I want to talk about are my top favorite drought-tolerant plants from my particular area, why I love them so much, and how to grow them. So what is drought-tolerant gardening? It is gardening with plants that can use less water, minimal water during our summer dry climate. Back to Zone 9B, what does it mean in our particular area? We don't get much rain at all. It's very sporadic, generally involves thunder and lightning, if we get any rain at all between April and October. So we're working with a completely dry climate all late spring all the way through fall. We get our first fall rains somewhere in the middle of October. Sometimes it's a tiny bit earlier, sometimes it's later still. So this is what we're working with. And there are tricks, there are tips, there's advice, there's hints, and there's certain plants that totally thrive in this kind of environment. So let me tell you all about them. First off, before I get going with my top current favorite drought-tolerant plant, let me tell you some of the benefits of drought-tolerant gardening. So not only is it saving you money on your water bills, definitely the water bills have gone up and up and up if you live in the city. I'm on a well, both here at Cottage Gardens and at my own house. And every time I have my irrigation on, that involves electricity. As we all know, electric bills have gone up also. So you're saving money straight off by doing drought-tolerant gardening using drought-tolerant plants. Second of all, they are tough, they're resilient. They'll bloom when other plants are suffering, offering pollen and nectar and ultimately seeds to all the little passing pollinators and the birds later on. So they really, really add value to your landscape. And it's just, they're easier. They're quite often way easier for you to grow than the thirstier plants. And you can go on vacation and not stress and worry about your drought-tolerant plants like you would about your thirstier plants. So yeah, there are so many benefits to drought-tolerant gardening. So yeah, let's get started. Sunflowers, I adore sunflowers. I know I've talked about them before in shorts, in videos, on Instagram, and everywhere else, but my goodness, look at them. Don't they just make you so, so happy? And I bet you didn't realize just how drought-tolerant sunflowers are. Well, they're really pretty drought-tolerant, and they're so easy to care for. Basically, prepare your soil, plant the seeds, protect them from birds, protect the little seedlings from slugs and snails, give them some water, they don't need a ton, and next thing you know, you've got 10-foot tall sunflowers getting all the bees, all the pollinators really, really happy. I've even seen some chickadees feasting on some of the sunflower heads already. And these were only planted in June. Ah, sunflowers. They're magical, they're wonderful, and they make us all smile. Come check them out. If you're anywhere close, you have got to come by Cottage Gardens and look at the sunflowers. Next up, I am going to talk about hummingbird mint. Agostiki is how we say it. I've heard all sorts of variations on it, like Agastache, Agastaki, all kinds of things. We've stuck with Agostiki, but hummingbird mint is its common name. And it's called hummingbird mint because hummingbirds adore this plant. And the mint part, the foliage smells beautifully minty. It is quite amazing. Now, I love a whole range of hummingbird mints. Pink Pearl was my favorite last year. I still absolutely adore it. I have it in my garden. Can't get enough of it. I love the compactness, how many blooms they have on it. But this year I am completely smitten with Little Adder. It's so intense, seems to bloom nonstop, and it's gorgeous, and it's very, very drought tolerant. So not only do you get nectar for the bees, I think I've got a bee on it right now, and for the hummingbirds, but you got nonstop drought tolerant blooms from pretty much late May through fall. And you know, what's not to love about that? That is pretty darn amazing if you ask me. So look at the colors it comes in. There's pretty much any color you can think of. The one that I haven't seen yet is white, but what I've got is mandarin colored, pink, sort of a magenta. My beloved Little Adder is a really great dark indigo blue. Blue boa has a little more pink to it. The leaves are a little more robust. It gets a bit taller. I have this one at my house. I love it. What I really love though is the way it blooms forever. Makes those honeybees and pollinators so happy. And with such little work, it's crazy. Oh, we must not forget this one. This is Poquito Butter Yellow. Isn't it just adorable? Totally buttery yellow, lots of little blooms, compact shape, down around 18 inches is where it tops out, slightly fussier. I have been treating this as an annual in my own yard, but I know people who can keep it going over a couple of years. And then finally, Tutti Frutti. Again, fabulous color. Bees love it. Hummingbirds particularly love Tutti Frutti. And I love the color. It's gorgeous. One of those great plants that just moves so nicely in the wind. So yeah, hummingbird mint, Agostiki, fabulous drought tolerant choice. You know, I should have said before, I am talking about drought tolerant plants and perennials. Of course, the native plants are really quite amazing. Great drought tolerant choices. I am going to do a whole other video on them. So I'm leaving them out of this particular video on purpose. There's some great choices. Whole lot to talk about, but today we're just not going to talk about them. So it brings me to my next thing. I want to talk about this lavender right here. Now, all lavenders are really great drought tolerant choices, but I love Merlot. My top favorite that I have at my house is Munstead because it pretty much blooms nonstop all the way through late October. Never stops. Gorgeous cloud of blue that the pollinators adore and the butterflies love it too. And I love it, top favorite. But for foliage interest, and probably the most fragrant lavender foliage ever, is this beautiful variegated lavender called Merlot. It is particularly drought tolerant too, which I discovered in my garden one year when the whole irrigation failed in that particular part of the yard, sailed through. It's big and billowy and beautiful, adds this pop of brightness with this beautiful variegation that it's got, and it even blooms. So yes, Merlot, it gets 2 to 3 feet tall, billows out even a little bit further, has these beautiful little palish blue blooms. You can shear it, you can shape it. Really what you should do is inhale it, and it is amazing for any drought tolerant landscape. If you're interested in finding out a little more about lavender, I did a whole lavender video a little while back, and you can find it right here. This brings me to salvias, sages. I am going to venture to say that pretty much every single sage that I can think of is really drought tolerant once established. And I love so many different sages that it was kind of hard to pick a favorite for today. So I picked 3. This little Hummingbird Falls is pretty unique. It is a great choice for a hanging basket, for example, especially one that you might possibly neglect every now and again because it's a salvia, relatively drought tolerant, definitely tough. So you don't need to stress about it too much the way you might with other hanging basket choices. So I want to show you one other because I have not even seen the bloom yet, But this is called Costa Rica Blue. It keeps growing and growing and growing, and even if it never blooms at all, the foliage is stunning. It's almost tropical looking. I cannot wait to see this one bloom. Costa Rica Blue. All of the salvias are amazing. So many great choices for a drought-tolerant garden. But there's one that I want to show you towards the end of this particular spectacular aisle of salvias that I love for a lot of reasons. The color is quite amazing. It's totally magenta, fabulous. The foliage is very, very glossy green, dark green. And though it looks a little odd and floppy in the pot right here, Salvia chiapensis is fantastic in the landscape. And here in Northern California, it is literally never out of bloom in my garden. And it's a great transition plant. I have it underneath my pomegranate tree, and it goes further and further. It goes through, and that's pretty shady under the pomegranate. It can transition over into a sunny area, a part sunny area, and it thrives wherever I put it. And it thrives even when the irrigation is a little bit troublesome over there, and it thrives because the gophers don't eat it and the deer don't eat it. I absolutely love Salvia chiapensis. The color, you know, just for the color alone, it's quite amazing. But so much resilience, so much tolerance for all sorts of things going wrong in your garden. It is just quite amazing. So yeah, this guy gets about 3 feet tall at its full maturity. What you really should do is cut it back fairly hard once a year to kind of bush it out a bit. Really, it should be in sun or part shade, but like I said, it takes more shade than you think. And there's not enough good things I can say about this. It is fantastic. Top favorite out of all my favorite salvias. So let's talk a little bit more about what a drought-tolerant plant even needs. The rule of thumb is excellent drainage because it is drought-tolerant. It kind of goes the opposite way. It hates if the feet are wet, hates if the roots are underwater. So good drainage is really, really important in a drought-tolerant garden. When you're planting anything, it's a great idea to amend the soil pretty well. But everybody I have mentioned already today, all these plants I've mentioned today, absolutely don't want soil that is too rich. You don't want it too high in nitrogen. So relatively, you know, poor-ish soils work just fine for everybody I've mentioned so far. Excellent drainage is vital though. Do not work with a clay soil and not amend like crazy or mound up. If you've got clay, you've got to do something about your drainage. Make sure, picture the wettest winter possible, what the roots of your new drought-tolerant plants are going to be doing during that wet winter, and do whatever you can to make sure those roots won't be sitting in water. You can plant in raised beds, you can use containers, you can mound things up. There's a lot of different things you can do. Shoot me a comment, happy to help if you're working with clay soil. All right, let's move on to the next plant. I gotta show you this. All right, if you're looking for a low growing plant to plant towards the front of your drought tolerant border, you know, with all your salvias and lavenders and everything else behind it, you cannot get a tougher plant than this little guy, this donkey-tailed spurge. It's also called, got another name, donkey-tailed myrtle, but it is quite amazing. Looks just like a succulent. It's not a succulent. It is a Euphoria, Euphoria mercenites, and it's tough as nails, completely drought tolerant, so low maintenance, it's hard to believe. And, you know, gophers don't eat it, deer don't eat it, and it looks gorgeous and pretty much highlights anything you'll be growing behind it. So it gives you this great look at the front of the border, shows off the plants behind it really nicely. But one of the best things about it, it sends out these great, bright green flowers at the end of each stalk. Late winter, early spring, that lasts for months. And it's really gorgeous. They're blooming when not much else is blooming. And it's literally one of the toughest plants I've got in my garden. Something I like about it is that it also self-seeds, puts itself in spots you would never suspect a plant to put itself in, and thrives on neglect. And it is amazing. And pollinators do like the flowers too, which is, you know, extra added bonus. So yeah, Euphoria mercenites gets about 8 inches tall, spreads up to about 2 feet. at its biggest when it's blooming, and long-lived. I mean, I've got one in the back of my house, literally never gets watered except for whatever winter rains happen on it, and it's still going strong after 6 or 8 years and sending out little babies every now and again. Totally drought tolerant, fantastically resilient, very little maintenance, like I'll say zero. Yeah, there's so much to love about this plant, but there's one thing maybe you should know before you go out and plant a million of them. When you're pruning it, you have to be super careful, just like you would with any other euphorbia, because the sap, that little white oozing sap that comes out of it, is caustic, which means if you have a little cut on your hand, or if you accidentally rub your eyes, which I did once, that was not good, it's going to sting like crazy for a little while. Nobody's tempted to eat it, but you can get stung if you have a cut in your hand and you accidentally rub the sap in. Euphorbia mercenites, the donkey tail spurge, looks like a succulent. All of these succulents, they are so drought tolerant. It's really a great world to dive into if you're going for drought tolerant plants. And there's succulents that are low, there's succulents that are kind of high. A whole lot of things you can do for a whole drought tolerant succulent garden. But there's one in particular I really have to show you. It's new to me this year, and it is stunning. This is agave snow glow, and it's a sport of our absolutely beloved blue glow, which we adore. We've got it planted over there in one of our demonstration gardens. But snow glow, look at this. It's got this creamy variegation on the edges, still has the spikes, still has that little bit of a red tinge that blue glow has, that we love so much about blue glow. It grows about the same height, which is like 2 feet-ish tall, 2 to 3 feet wide. Makes this beautiful mound, and the variegation is just the frosting on the cake. It is absolutely a stunning plant. I'm so blown away by it. Brought one home, planted some up over here. It is tough as well. Some succulents are a little bit frost tender. This guy can go down to 0, no problem, which we don't have around here. Again, you want to make sure it's got full sun, which all the rest that I talked about today, except that Salvia chiapensis, really would prefer to be in full sun. Excellent drainage is still a thing. Minimal summer water, make sure they don't drown in winter. And the bonus of this particular succulent is that it doesn't freeze in winter. A lot of what I grow here are pretty frost hardy, but not all. You're guaranteed with this guy. So yeah, snow glow. I keep wanting to say snow globe, but it is not. It is agave snow glow. Look at this thing. It is absolutely amazing. We've loved blue glow forever, and I expect snow glow to have the exact same growth habit as blue glow, because that's what I've heard, but it's my first year carrying that, so don't know for sure yet, but I planted some over there. So fingers crossed it looks as stunning as this by this time next year. So there you go. I hope I've covered everything you need to know about drought-tolerant plants. I hope you like my favorites too. I am particularly partial to every one of them. But yeah, explore the world of drought-tolerant gardening. It is so good for the environment, so good for the pollinators, so good for your water bill. And you can have an amazing garden, even using drought-tolerant plants only. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. If you like this video, press the like button, share it, subscribe if you haven't already. Drop me a comment, drop me a question, share your experiences. I'd love to know if you've got any particular favorites. But yeah, you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on Instagram, you can find me at Cottage Gardens of Petaluma. Email me anytime. And most of all, find yourselves in your garden and have a wonderful time gardening. Happy gardening.